Hi guys, so Boris Johnson likes to bang on about how Brexit has benefited Britain. He said that it allowed the UK to lead when it came to the vaccine rollout, which of course was a lie. He said that leaving the European Union would allow Britain to set up free ports that permitted business to thrive. Free ports were closed down in 2020 during a Conservative administration. And of course, he likes to promote the idea of trade, how global Britain is getting away from trade with Europe to buying and selling from all over the world. Well, a problem with that is that the UK is still heavily reliant on Europe for goods, and while Brexiteers would like to ignore that, it remains a fact. Because global Britain decided to impose barriers to trade, it's now been referred to by some as a closed economy. Johnson was challenged on this, and well, he engaged in complete denial of reality.
Okay. And finally, you said in response to a question from Neil Parrish, the importance of exports. I think you were particularly looking at food at that particular moment. The OBR's latest forecasts, and I think, to be precise, it's on page 63, chart I, which you're probably very familiar with, shows the trade intensity as a percentage of GDP that our economy commands now. In other words, how much exporting and importing we're doing now compared to the past. And it also shows what happened to all the countries in the EU and our major trading partners. Now, as Brexit and the pandemic struck almost simultaneously, we all went down. So we all exported and imported much, much less. The others, as we come out of the pandemic, have gone back up to, broadly speaking, where they were before. We've stayed very low. Are you concerned that perhaps because of Brexit and the time it's taking now to strike all these deals with other countries around the world on the trade side, that we're becoming more of a closed economy? And that, of course, will have implications for productivity and also the living standards that we're seeking this afternoon to try and protect.
I'm very keen that we should not. I mean, we've become a closed economy at all, and I think there is we all want to grow more of our own food and so on. But I'm not a believer in autarky. We've got to be.
How quickly can we get back
open,
to where we were?
Global trading nation, and I do want to see much more of an export drive, and I think that I think it was Liam Fox, our colleague, a couple of years ago, made the point. I think a lot of UK companies could sell a lot more overseas than they do. And you may have noticed in the newspapers, Mel, there's a big government campaign now to encourage them.
And how long do you think it might be before we get back to where we were pre-pandemic?
I can't prophesy that, but as I told Neil, we are on it, and we want to champion it, and there is no natural impediment to our exports. There is no. It is just will and energy and ambition.
There's no natural impediment. It's just will and ambition. Does Boris Johnson not understand how trade works? Does Boris Johnson not understand what non-tariff barriers are? Did Boris Johnson not read the TCA? Now, either he didn't read it, or he did read it, and he's pretending to have not read it. These are barriers to trade that Brexiteers, including Boris Johnson, put in place. Now, it was not necessary to leave the single market and the customs union, but Boris Johnson and his government decided to do that. They were told, if you do that, there will be barriers to trade. You will not have the same access to the single market and the customs, well, the single market in particular, that you had before. That's going to finish. And the response from Boris Johnson and others was, that's scaremongering. We'll be able to trade as we were before. We'll be able to trade even better. Complete and utter disconnect from reality. Now, it's interesting here that the chair connected, and finally somebody is doing it, connected the cost of living crisis to Brexit. Because he said here clearly how if we're putting barriers to trade up, it's going to be more difficult for our businesses to operate. That means we're going to have to import more, or many businesses are going to have to lay people off, or they're going to have to increase prices. And this is going to put more stress, more strain on people who are already struggling at the moment. Boris Johnson is not being affected by the cost of living crisis. Jacob Rees-Mogg and others are not being affected. Ordinary people are. And you can see here how putting barriers to trade, making it more difficult for UK companies to export, is going to make it more difficult for these companies to turn a profit, to spread the wealth around. If the companies are suffering, it means the exchequer is receiving less revenue. It means they're able to spend less on public services. So who rely most on public services? The poor and the working class. So obviously the people who are going to suffer the most because of Brexit are the people who were convinced by the likes of Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage to vote for it. Once again, he has no understanding of trade, or he's pretending to have no understanding of trade. Which do you think it is? And let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.